Your daughter's jaw was broken in 6 places. Now I know they're hiding something.
The doctor lifted my daughter's X-ray toward the light and quietly told me her jaw had been broken in 6 places. Then her cracked phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Tell your father to stop asking questions. Next time, no one will find you. Hello, everyone. My name is Russell Baird. I am a retired Army Master Sergeant, a widower, and the father of 1 daughter, Sadie. I had spent more than 20 years learning how to stay calm when everything around me was falling apart. But on one rainy Thursday night in Missouri, I discovered there is no training in the world that can prepare a father to see his child lying silent in a hospital bed. At 11:38 that night, my phone began vibrating across the kitchen table. I had just turned off the television and was preparing to lock the back door of my small house outside Springfield. Rain tapped against the windows, and the weather report warned that the storm would continue until morning. Before I go any further, tell me where you are listening from. What city, state, or country has this story reached? Please leave a comment below, because I truly want to know how far Sadie's story travels. The number on my screen was unfamiliar. Normally, I ignored unknown calls that late. That night, however, a cold feeling passed through my chest before I even answered. Hello. A woman spoke in a controlled, professional voice. Am I speaking with Mr. Russell Baird? Yes. There was a pause. It lasted only a second, but I knew before she continued that my life was about to change. Mr. Baird. I'm calling from St. Catherine Medical Center. Your daughter, Sadie Baird, was brought into our emergency department tonight. For several moments, I could not understand the sentence. Sadie was 20 years old, in her 2nd year at Westbridge University, and usually more responsible than I had ever been at her age. She called me almost every evening. Sometimes she complained about assignments. Sometimes she told me something ridiculous her roommate had done. Sometimes she called only to remind me that I worried too much. 3 hours earlier, she had sent me a photograph of a paper cup beside an open textbook. Another thrilling Thursday night, she had written. What happened? I asked. The woman hesitated. Sir, it would be best if you came as soon as possible. My hand tightened around the phone. Please tell me what happened to my daughter. She was found injured near one of the academic buildings. She is stable, but she needs surgery. I had received difficult calls during my military career. I had watched families hear news that changed everything. I had believed experience had made me ready for almost anything. I was wrong. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and the old canvas bag I kept near the door. Then I drove into the rain. The hospital was almost 90 minutes away. Water covered the highway, and every pair of headlights became a blurred white streak across my windshield. I called the emergency department 3 times during that drive. Each time I received the same answer. Sadie was stable. A doctor would speak with me when I arrived. Stable was supposed to comfort me. It did not. It only meant she was still alive. It did not tell me why she had been behind the science building after dark. It did not tell me who had found her. It did not tell me whether the person who had hurt her was still nearby. As I drove, I kept remembering the last time I had seen her. She had visited me 2 weeks earlier. Before leaving, she stood in my driveway with a backpack over one shoulder and a smile on her face. Dad, I'm 20, she said. You do not need to call me every morning. I don't call every morning. She raised one eyebrow. You called 3 times before breakfast yesterday. That was an emergency. You wanted to know whether I had taken an umbrella. She laughed, hugged me, and climbed into her car. That night, on the wet highway, I would have given anything to hear that laugh again. When I reached St. Catherine Medical Center, the lobby looked painfully normal. A security guard sat behind a desk. A vending machine hummed beside the wall. A janitor pushed a cart across the polished floor. I hurried to the reception counter. Sadie Baird. She was brought in tonight. The nurse checked the computer, then looked at my face. Her expression changed. Room 308. The doctor is waiting for you. I barely remember the elevator ride. When I reached the 3rd floor and entered Sadie's room, I stopped in the doorway. My daughter lay beneath a white blanket with medical supports around her face and jaw. One side of her face was badly swollen. Small bandages covered cuts near her forehead. Her brown hair, usually tied in a neat ponytail, rested unevenly across the pillow. Her favorite green university sweatshirt had been sealed inside a clear hospital bag on a chair. For several seconds, I could not move. I had seen Sadie sick. I had held her hand when she needed stitches at age 7. I had stayed awake beside her through fevers and stomach viruses. I had carried her into the house after she fell asleep in the car. This was different. This was not the result of a careless step or a sports accident. Someone had frightened my daughter. Someone had hurt her badly enough that she could not tell me what happened. I stepped closer. Sadie? Her fingers moved beneath the blanket. I sat beside her and gently placed my hand over hers. It's Dad. I'm here. Her eyelids opened. The moment she recognized me, tears filled her eyes. She tried to speak, but no clear sound came out. Don't try, I whispered. You don't have to explain anything tonight. I'm not going anywhere. A tear moved down her cheek. I pressed my forehead against her hand. For the first time in many years, I felt completely powerless. A surgeon named Dr. Leonard Foster entered a few minutes later carrying several images. He looked calm, but the exhaustion in his eyes told me he had already spent hours working on Sadie. Mr. Baird, I'm Dr. Foster. I treated your daughter when she arrived. I stood. Tell me the truth. He placed the X-rays on a screen near the wall. Thin white lines appeared across the lower part of Sadie's face. She has 6 fractures in her jaw, he said. Several are serious. We can repair them and we expect her to recover, but the healing process will take time. I stared at the images. How does that happen? Dr. Foster glanced toward Sadie before answering. The pattern is not consistent with an ordinary fall. I understood what he meant. Someone did this. He gave one slow nod. My stomach turned cold. Who found her? Campus security discovered her near a service entrance behind the science building. Was she alone? As far as I know. Were there witnesses? I have not been given that information. A Westbridge University had thousands of students. Card access doors, patrol vehicles, emergency phones, and cameras across the campus. Sadie had not been found on an empty rural road. She had been found beside one of the busiest academic buildings at the school. Someone had seen something, and if no one was speaking, there had to be a reason. The first university official arrived before a police detective. Dean Malcolm Dorsey entered shortly after 2 in the morning. He wore dark trousers, a gray sweater, and a raincoat that was still wet around the shoulders. He introduced himself and offered a careful expression of concern. Mr. Baird, everyone at Westbridge is deeply troubled by what happened. I looked toward Sadie. Then why am I speaking with you before I have spoken with the person investigating it? His expression tightened. Campus safety has already begun an internal review. An internal review. We want to understand the full situation before incorrect information begins circulating. That sentence told me more than he intended. He had not asked whether Sadie was comfortable. He had not asked whether she needed anything. His first concern was information. More specifically, he was concerned about information leaving the hospital. My daughter is facing surgery, I said. This is not a public relations problem. Of course not. We simply want to protect her privacy and the university community. Show me the security footage. He blinked. I do not have authority to release it. Then call someone who does. Mr. Baird, these things require procedure. I stepped closer without raising my voice. Someone left my daughter behind a building, unable to call for help. You are standing here talking about procedure. Choose your next words carefully. Before he could answer, a nurse entered carrying a clear plastic evidence bag. Inside was Sadie's phone. The screen was cracked, but it was still working. This was found beneath a stairwell near where she was discovered. The nurse explained. The investigators will need it, but it has been receiving repeated calls. The phone lit up. There were more than 30 missed calls from a blocked number. Then a new message appeared. Tell your father to stop asking questions. Next time, no one will find you in time. The room became silent. Dean Dorsey read the message over my shoulder. Every bit of color disappeared from his face. I held up the phone. Does this still look like an internal university matter? He did not answer. 2 city detectives arrived shortly before sunrise. Detective Maria Benton was calm, observant, and direct. Her partner, Detective Joel Ramsey, carried a notebook and asked most of the first questions. Sadie could not speak clearly, so a nurse gave her a writing pad and a thick marker. Her hand trembled as she tried to form letters. The first attempt was unreadable. She closed her eyes, breathed slowly, and tried again. This time, she wrote one word: Travis. Detective Ramsey leaned closer. Travis who? Sadie's eyes moved toward Dean Dorsey. The dean immediately looked at the floor. I noticed. So did Detective Benton. You recognize the name, I said. Dean Dorsey swallowed. There is a student named Travis Lachlan. Who is he? The dean waited too long before answering. He is a senior. His family has been connected to Westbridge for many years. Detective Benton crossed her arms. Connected how? His father, Howard Lachlan, is chairman of the university's governing board. Sadie began crying. I sat beside her and held her hand while the detectives asked whether she knew Travis personally. She nodded. Had he contacted her recently? Another nod. Had she been afraid of him? Sadie looked at me, then slowly nodded again. Before the detectives could continue, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered and placed it on speaker. A man spoke with the calm confidence of someone who had rarely been told no. Mr. Baird, I believe your daughter is confused. I looked at Dean Dorsey. His eyes widened. Who is this? Howard Lachlan. My son's name is being carelessly mentioned in connection with an unfortunate event. My daughter wrote his name. She has been through a difficult night. Frightened people sometimes make mistakes. I looked at Sadie, then at the detectives. The mistake was believing she had no one willing to protect her. The line remained silent for a moment. Then Howard Lachlan ended the call. Sadie underwent surgery later that morning. While she was in the operating room, Detective Benton sat with me in the waiting area. She asked about Sadie's recent behavior. I told her that Sadie had been quieter for 2 weeks. She had stopped mentioning certain campus events. Twice, she had ended our evening calls when someone knocked on her dorm room door. I had asked whether anything was wrong. Both times, she said she was tired. I hated myself for accepting that answer. Detective Benton must have seen it on my face. Do not blame yourself, she said. People who are frightened often hide what is happening because they think they are protecting the people they love. I should have known. You knew enough to answer the phone and come. Right now, that matters. After she left, I began reviewing Sadie's messages. The detectives had copied the phone and allowed me to help identify contacts. Most of the conversations were ordinary. Class projects, coffee plans, complaints about cafeteria food. Then I found a hidden folder inside her notes application. It was protected by a simple password. I tried her birthday, nothing. I tried the name of our old dog, Nothing. Then I entered the date her mother died. The folder opened. Inside were screenshots from Travis Lachlan. At first, the messages looked friendly. He invited her to university events. He offered to introduce her to people who could help her career. He praised her grades and told her she was different from the others. Then the tone changed. When Sadie declined his invitations, he became insulting. When she asked him to stop contacting her, he reminded her that his father controlled scholarships, internships, and recommendations. One message said, "You should think carefully before embarrassing my family." Another said, "People who make trouble at Westbridge usually discover they do not belong here." The final note was written by Sadie herself. "If anything happens." Travis followed me after accounting class. I reported him to Dean Dorsey's office on Monday. They told me not to destroy a young man's future over a misunderstanding. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I stood, walked into the restroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. My face looked calm. Inside, something had broken open. The university had known. Sadie had asked for help. Instead of protecting her, they had protected the name on a building. When Dr. Foster finally came to tell me the surgery had gone well, I thanked him. Then I asked for a quiet room and called Detective Benton. She returned immediately. I showed her the folder. Her expression hardened as she read the messages. "This changes the investigation," she said. "What happens now? We seek warrants. We preserve records. We interview everyone. And the university would tell them not to delete anything." I looked through the glass toward the hallway. What if they already have? Detective Benton did not answer. That silence frightened me more than any promise could have. The next afternoon, Westbridge University released a statement. It described Sadie's injuries as an unfortunate incident near campus. It said there was no known continuing threat to students. It encouraged the community to avoid rumors and respect privacy. The statement did not mention Travis. It did not mention the threatening message. It did not mention that Sadie had filed a complaint 3 days earlier. I read it beside her hospital bed. Sadie watched my face and wrote on her pad, "They are making me disappear?" I leaned closer. "No," I said. "They are trying." "That is not the same thing." She wrote another sentence. "Please do not do anything dangerous." Even then, with her face held still by medical supports, she was worried about me. I took her hand. "I am not going to hurt anyone. I am going to make sure they cannot hide." That promise became my mission. That evening, I searched every public post connected to Westbridge. I reviewed student videos, event photographs, public schedules, and social media posts from the night Sadie was found. Most showed nothing useful. At 3 in the morning, I discovered a short video posted by a first-year student named Hannah Pierce. She had filmed the storm from her dormitory window. Lightning flashed behind the science building. Near a service entrance, 2 figures stood beneath an overhang. One was tall and wore a dark jacket. The other was smaller and wore a green sweatshirt identical to Sadie's. The video had been recorded 5 minutes before campus security found her. It did not show the attack, but it proved Sadie had not been alone. I clicked the comments. The original post had been deleted, but a student had saved a screenshot. Travis Lachlan had reacted to the video less than 10 minutes after it was posted. Why would he be monitoring a random rain video at midnight? I sent everything to Detective Benton. The following afternoon, she met me in the hospital cafeteria. "The video is useful," she said, "but it may not be enough by itself." "What about the cameras behind the science building?" Her jaw tightened. "The university says the main camera was offline for maintenance." On that exact night. That is what they are claiming. What about the card access records? They say there was a system error between 10:30 and midnight. I stared at her. A camera failure and an access record failure during the same 90 minutes. I agree it is convenient. Do you believe them? She looked around the cafeteria before lowering her voice. I believe too many convenient things happened at once. That was all I needed to hear. Sadie remained in the hospital for 5 days. During that time, strangers began calling. One claimed to be a reporter, but asked only whether I planned to accuse Travis publicly. Another said he represented an independent student support foundation and offered to pay all medical expenses if we signed a privacy agreement. A third caller never gave a name. He said, "Good families know when to accept help and move forward." I recorded every call. On the 6th day, a courier delivered a thick envelope to the hospital. Inside was a proposed settlement for $200,000. The document did not admit responsibility. It required Sadie and me to remain silent, withdraw all complaints, surrender copies of her messages, and agree that her injuries resulted from an unknown incident. At the bottom was the name of a law firm that represented Howard Laughlin's companies. I showed it to Sadie. Her eyes filled with anger. She took the marker and wrote, "They think I have a price." I tore the signature page in half. They are about to learn they guessed wrong. After Sadie was discharged, I prepared the downstairs bedroom at my house. I filled the refrigerator with soup, yogurt, and soft food. I placed a bell beside her bed because speaking was still painful. The hardest part was not the medical care. The hardest part was watching fear change her. Before the attack, Sadie filled every room with sound. She played music while studying. She laughed loudly. She argued with television commercials. Afterward, she watched the front window whenever a car slowed near the house. She woke from nightmares. She checked the locks 3 times before bed. One afternoon, I found her sitting on the floor of the pantry because someone had knocked unexpectedly. She looked at me with shame. "I am sorry," she whispered through clenched teeth. I sat beside her. "You never apologize for surviving." That night, after she fell asleep, I opened the closet in my bedroom. Beneath old blankets was a metal box I had not touched since leaving the army. Inside were photographs, records, and contact information for people I once trusted with my life. I did not need anyone to frighten Travis. I did not want revenge that would place Sadie in more danger. I wanted facts. Facts that could not be erased by a dean, a donor, or a carefully written press release. I called Elias Boone, a former military intelligence analyst who now worked as an independent financial investigator. "Russell Baird," he said when he answered. "I have not heard your voice in years. I need help." His tone changed immediately. "Tell me what happened." I explained everything. When I finished, he remained silent for several seconds. "What exactly do you need?" "Every legal record connected to Howard Laughlin's university donations, business partnerships, foundations, and contracts. Public records, court filings, financial disclosures, archived statements. Nothing illegal. Nothing that cannot be verified. You are not asking for rumors. No. Rumors can be denied. I want documents. Give me a week." While Elias worked, Detective Benton uncovered another crack in the university story. A night custodian named Samuel Ortiz had been working inside the science building. He told investigators he heard Sadie shouting for someone to leave her alone. He stepped into the hallway, but was ordered back inside by a campus security supervisor. The supervisor claimed there had been a private student dispute and said he would handle it. Samuel later saw Travis leaving through the service entrance. He had reported what he saw the next morning. His supervisor instructed him not to speak with anyone until the university completed its internal review. When Detective Benton told me, I felt both relief and anger. Relief because there was a witness. Anger because a decent man had been pressured into silence. Then something worse happened. Samuel disappeared from the employee schedule. The university claimed he had resigned. Samuel told Detective Benton he had been fired for performance issues after 11 years without a serious complaint. The cover-up was no longer subtle. Elias called me 6 days after I contacted him. "Russell, the Loughlin family's public image is polished," he said. "Scholarships, buildings, charity events, but there are patterns underneath it." He explained that companies connected to Howard Loughlin had received favorable development contracts from organizations associated with the university. Donations moved through several foundations with limited transparency. Board members approved projects that benefited Loughlin partners. Then Elias found something directly connected to Travis. 3 previous complaints had been filed against him over 4 years. One student withdrew after losing a scholarship. Another transferred. A third signed a confidential agreement after the university warned that a formal complaint might damage her career. The records had been removed from Travis's main disciplinary file. Elias also found an email from Dean Dorsey to a board attorney. It said, "The student matter involving TL must be resolved quietly before the founders' campaign dinner. We cannot risk upsetting HL while the science expansion remains unfunded." I read the email twice. Sadie had been attacked behind the same science building Howard Loughlin had promised to help expand. The building was not merely a location. It was a symbol of the bargain the university had made. Protect the donor. Protect the money. Let frightened students carry the cost. Elias prepared several identical evidence packages. One went to state investigators. One went to an independent journalist in Kansas City. One went to the university's accreditation office. One went to the state attorney general's public integrity division. Another went to Detective Benton. The final folder stayed with me. We did not announce anything. We waited. 3 days later, Howard Loughlin came to my house. He arrived in a black sedan with a driver. He wore a dark overcoat and carried no umbrella, though the sky threatened rain. I watched him walk up the path and ring the bell. Sadie was upstairs. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. "Mr. Baird," he said, "I hoped we could speak privately. You had my number. This conversation is better in person." "No. This conversation is better where my security camera can record it." His eyes moved toward the small camera above the door. For the first time, his confidence slipped. "I understand you are angry. You do not understand anything about me. My son says Sadie misunderstood his intentions. My daughter filed a complaint. Your university buried it. Then she was found with 6 fractures in her jaw. You should be careful with accusations. You should be careful visiting the home of a witness in an active investigation." He opened his coat slightly and removed an envelope. "I can make sure Sadie receives the best medical care, tuition at any school, a graduate program, financial security. You already sent a settlement. This is different." "How?" "This would be a personal arrangement." I stared at him. "You believe every problem has a price. Every family wants security. My family wants truth." His mouth tightened. "You are placing your daughter under unnecessary public attention." "No. Your son placed her in a hospital. You are placing your family name above her life." He lowered his voice. "Think carefully, Mr. Baird. Powerful institutions do not fall because one angry father sends a few documents." I almost smiled. "You are right." His eyes narrowed. "They fall when many people discover they were not the only ones who were silenced." That was the moment he understood. The packages were already out. The witnesses were already talking. He could no longer control the direction of the story. Howard put the envelope back inside his coat. "You will regret this." "No," I said. "You are finally going to regret it." He walked back to his car without another word. The first article appeared the next morning. Its headline asked why Westbridge University had erased complaints connected to the son of its board chairman. The journalist had confirmed the emails, contracts, and disciplinary records. She interviewed Samuel Ortiz. She spoke with 2 former students. She verified that university officials had contacted Sadie's family before police completed their first interview. By noon, national reporters were calling. By evening, Westbridge announced an independent review. That phrase made me laugh for the first time in weeks. They had ignored Sadie when the truth could be hidden. Now they were reviewing themselves because the truth had become public. More former students came forward. One described being told that Travis was immature but promising. Another said a university counselor encouraged her to focus on graduation instead of filing a report. A former security officer revealed that staff had been instructed to notify Dean Dorsey's office before documenting incidents involving certain donor families. Then the missing camera footage was found. It had not been destroyed. A junior information technology employee had discovered an automatic backup on an external server. He had copied it before being ordered to delete the archive. The footage showed Travis following Sadie toward the science building. It showed her turning away from him repeatedly. It showed him blocking the exit. The camera angle did not capture every second, but it captured enough. Another camera showed him leaving alone. A third showed a campus security supervisor arriving, looking toward Sadie, and using his phone for almost 4 minutes before calling emergency services. Detective Benton later told me those 4 minutes became important. The supervisor's first call had not been to an ambulance. It had been to Dean Dorsey. The investigation moved quickly after that. Police obtained Travis's phone. His deleted messages were recovered. One read, "She says she is reporting me tomorrow." Another, sent to a friend, said, "My father will fix it like before." The blocked threats to Sadie came from a prepaid phone purchased by Travis's roommate. The roommate admitted Travis had used it. Facing overwhelming evidence, Travis was charged. Howard Lachlan resigned from the university board. Dean Dorsey was placed on leave, then dismissed. The campus security supervisor was charged with evidence tampering and obstruction. State investigators opened a broader inquiry into university contracts and donor influence. But before the case reached court, Travis tried one last time to control the story. His attorneys offered a public apology in exchange for a reduced charge. The apology described Sadie's injuries as the result of tragic confrontation fueled by miscommunication. Sadie read it slowly at our kitchen table. Her speech was improving, though every long conversation still caused pain. "He still cannot say what he did," she whispered. "What do you want to do?" I asked. She looked at me. "I want to speak." I was afraid, not because I doubted her strength, but because I knew the public could be cruel. People would examine her choices. They would ask why she went near the science building. They would ask why she had not told me sooner. They would find a way to make her defend her own suffering. Sadie saw the fear on my face. "You told me my voice still matters?" she said. "I need to believe you." So we prepared. At the preliminary hearing, the courtroom was filled with reporters. Travis sat beside his attorneys in an expensive suit. Howard Lachlan sat behind him. Sadie entered through a side door. She moved slowly. A faint scar remained near her chin. Her jaw had healed, but her words were careful. When she reached the witness stand, the room became completely still. She explained how Travis first contacted her. She described the invitations, the pressure, and the threats. She described reporting him to Dean Dorsey's office. Then she described the night behind the science building. Her voice shook only once. Travis had followed her after a study session. He demanded that she withdraw her complaint. When she refused, he grabbed her phone. She tried to leave. He blocked the door. She shouted. The rest happened quickly. Sadie did not describe every painful detail. She did not need to. The X-rays had already spoken. The footage had already spoken. The recovered messages had already spoken. Then the prosecutor asked why she had written Travis's name in the hospital. Sadie looked directly at him. Because I thought if I could write one true word, my father would find the rest. I lowered my head. For the first time since the phone call, I cried in public. Travis eventually accepted responsibility in court. His sentence included prison time, long-term supervision, and restitution. The outcome could not return the months Sadie lost, but it placed the truth into a permanent record, where no donor could remove it. Howard Lachlan faced separate investigations related to financial misconduct and attempts to interfere with university decisions. Several contracts were canceled. His foundation lost major partners. Buildings bearing his family name were reviewed by the board. Westbridge University's president resigned. Dean Dorsey lost his position and professional standing. Samuel Ortiz received a public apology, back pay, and a new supervisory role after the university was forced to admit he had been punished for telling the truth. The institution also created an independent reporting office outside the control of donors and senior administrators. Policies alone could not heal Sadie, but the changes meant the next frightened student might be heard before reaching a hospital bed. Some people called what happened revenge. Maybe they were right, but my revenge was not a threat in the dark. It was not violence. It was not fear. My revenge was making every hidden document public. My revenge was placing Sadie's truth where powerful people could no longer bury it. My revenge was watching Howard Lachlan enter a courthouse through a crowd of cameras after he had once arrived at my home believing he could buy my silence. That was justice with its eyes open. Sadie never returned to Westbridge. She transferred to a smaller college closer to home. At first, she attended only 2 classes. I drove her there and waited in the parking lot. The first week, she came back after 20 minutes. The second week, she stayed for 1 class. The third week, she stayed all afternoon. Healing did not arrive as one dramatic victory. It came in small steps. The first time she drove alone. The first time she slept through the night. The first time she laughed and did not immediately become quiet. The first time a blocked number appeared on her screen, and she let it ring without shaking. She changed her major from business administration to counseling. When I asked why, she said, "I want to sit beside people who think no one believes them." A year after the attack, we sat on the front porch drinking coffee. The sun was setting beyond the trees. Sadie wore the same green sweatshirt that had once been sealed inside a hospital bag. She had washed it, repaired a torn sleeve, and decided not to let that night own it. "Dad," she said, "were you ever afraid?" I smiled. "Every day. You never looked afraid." That is because courage does not mean fear disappears. It means something else matters more. She rested her head against my shoulder. For me, that something had always been her. Before I end, let me briefly summarize Sadie's story. A powerful student believed his family's influence could protect him. A university chose reputation and money over a frightened young woman. After Sadie was severely injured, officials tried to describe the crime as an unfortunate incident. They hid complaints, delayed evidence, pressured witnesses, and offered money for silence. But one written name, one hidden phone folder, one rain video, one honest custodian, and a trail of public documents changed everything. The lesson is simple. Influence can delay accountability, but it cannot guarantee silence forever. A person's voice still matters when speaking is difficult. Families cannot prevent every terrible moment, but they can make sure no loved one faces that moment alone. Real courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is a trembling hand writing one name on a hospital pad. Sometimes it is a witness deciding to tell the truth after being warned to stay quiet. Sometimes it is a father refusing to sign a settlement because his daughter's future is worth more than any check. Institutions reveal their true character when protecting a vulnerable person becomes inconvenient. Justice may not restore everything that was lost. It cannot erase fear, scars, or sleepless nights. But accountability can clear a safer path for the people who come next. Most importantly, healing is not about returning to the person you were before. It is about becoming someone who knows the worst moment of your life did not get the final word. Thank you for listening to our story. Please like this video, share it with someone who believes truth still matters, and leave a comment telling me where you are watching from. Your support helps stories like Sadie's reach people who may feel ignored or alone. I once believed strength came from training, discipline, and years of experience. My daughter taught me the truth. The strongest thing I ever did was stand beside her until the people who tried to silence her were finally forced to listen.